This is Louis D. Fresh, bringing it to you on a Thursday. I'm smiling so happily and mightily and whatever because I've learned in my old age here to kind of roll with whatever happens. One of the bad things about using your phone for these videos is that if you get a phone call, not a text message or an email, but if you get a phone call, the whole video just stops. And so I was rolling, but that's life. We'll try again. Part 2. Welcome back to the Louis D. Fresh channel. Welcome back to the fish portion of our YouTube channel. What we're going to be talking about today, maybe I'll do a little bit better this time. It's round 2. We're talking about a cold front. A cold front, what we're talking about here in South Florida, and for those people who, again, most of my followers are not from the United States. If you look at a map from the United States, it's on the east side. It's a very, very bottom. It almost looks like an elephant's trunk on the map, and I'm towards the bottom of that trunk, that state, and it's toward the east. And if you notice again on a world map, I'm closer to the equator. So therefore we have a subtropical climate. So what am I telling you? Is that normally here in the wintertime, because it is the almost the middle of January, this is winter, and I'm in t-shirt and shorts. Because right now it's about, I guess, in the upper 70s. And we're talking about Fahrenheit now. If you need to know what I'm talking about in Celsius, feel free to Google the numbers I say, which are in Fahrenheit, and ask them to translate into Celsius. What we're talking about is a cold front. Cold fronts come every so often throughout the winter. We're talking about December, January, February, March, even sometimes in November. And sometimes, it can be a shock to the system. If you look at my social media this past week, Thursday to be exact, you'll notice I talk about a tree and my hibiscus plant, how they lost some leaves during a cold front that I'm going to talk about right now. So, now without all that said, being that I'm nice in shorts and t-shirt right now, what normally takes place in these cold fronts is that since we are humid, we're a peninsula surrounded by three sides of water, a cold front can be really chilly, especially when your blood thins out and all the organisms feel the warmth. When it goes down to about 40 Fahrenheit, it can be traumatic. And the fish, and not so much the turtles. The turtles, you see they're somewhere up there. Yeah, they're out there. What takes place is that even if you have a heater, it could be a shock to the system. So why am I telling you all this? Is because that 75-gallon tank of fish that I have here, I had an issue. An issue began following the Western calendar around Christmas time. Christmas in the Western world here and the Christian calendar, it usually falls, if you look at a calendar, the Western world, we have 12 months. I know everybody doesn't follow the same calendar. That's why I'm talking about this. You notice this 12th month, which is December, and if you look towards the bottom of that calendar, which is, they have 31 days in December, you look at 24, 25, that is what I'm talking about. So we're talking about where I live in the Western world, in the United States, the state that looks like a trunk, eastern side and eastern side. And then you'll notice, again, the subtropical climate. And what I want you to notice is when I'm talking about weather, we're talking about Fahrenheit. Okay, now that I've said all that, and now that you know what days I'm talking about, even though today's January 12th, I'm talking about December 24th, which is Christmas Eve. And Christmas Eve, there was a bad cold front. And a cold front, again, temperature goes from the 70s down to the 40s. And usually once it'll bounce back up into the 60s and go back down to the 40s again for a bad cold front. But what happened during Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, 24th and 25th December 2022, is that it stayed that way. It stayed cold. It was in the 40s and never made it out of the 40s, and it was cloudy and a little drizzly. So it was pretty cold, but I thought I had it under control, and this is why this is called Cold Front, a Fish Story Part 1, because I want to share with you my observations, and then part 2, hopefully with good endings. So far so good, but there hopefully we'll have some even better news. But first I wanted to show you these guys, these turtles. These guys are tough as nails. Even when it's chilly outside, they handled it really, really well, because what I'm going to share with you, I had a heater right over here, even with the turtles right up and down, right here. And I had a heater, past tense, that was here. You notice here, up and down, right here, because my electrical outlets are right here. So with that said, I thought that everything will be cool and everything will work out really well. And remember, I also had, because I want to share with what I had and what I will do later on, and explain. These are the plants that I had in here, and that piece of driftwood in there. So everything, that's what was going on, and I thought that I had, as I sit, I thought I had it all under control, because the heaters that I had, they said they were good for up to 80 gallons. So I was like, heaters are good up to 80 gallons. I just put the heaters in. It's kind of important too, is, you know, where I'm 51, and back in the late 1970s, early 1980s, there was only one style of heater. The heater would go up and down. It was sort of like a tube about, no, not even that big, about that thick, right? And it would go up and down, and you would hang it on the back, and that was it. You were cool. Everything went well, you know, so you didn't think anything of it. Now they have these submersible heaters, so that one you can submerge, the one that I was just referring to. And so I observed, and I thought everything was going to be fine. What happened? December 24th, fish were still cool. It went down to 40. Everything was fine. But the next day, it stayed in 40, and it was it was drizzly and cloudy. Even though overnight, I know it sounds weird, but it held the cold more. So I was fine. I thought everything was fine. Now, December 25th, I was annoyed. Let me show you. We're talking about in this cold front, a fish story. I had an epic failure, and I'm not used to epic failures because I've been doing this stuff for so long. You'll see here, right on the top of this tank, right here, you see how the fish are swimming along? Well, as you see them swimming along, right on top of here, there must have been at least a good 10 fish that were dead right up here, dead. And then I looked down here, and that there were even more dead fish down here. I would say it was a total of 20-25 fish that had died in this epic failure. And I thought I had it because the heater was there, and the turtles were fine over here. So I thought, well, what's the problem? The turtles are fine. What happened here? Because the heater, they had the same style of heater. So I again, here's where part one comes into play. In my anger, because I was angry, I don't lose fish. I haven't lost a fish in at least a year. You know, every once in a while they do die, but I mean, it's rare. It's really rare. So to lose so many fish so quickly, I knew it was the cold front, and I thought I had it because the heater set up to 80 gallons. I even did a water change before the cold front. I thought everything was going well. I swear everything went well. So in my anger, and it was funny because even my poor wife noticed that I was angry because my poor mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law and brother-in-law were slept over, and my wife thought I was angry that they had slept over. I wasn't angry at that at all. I was angry at the fish. And so I had to put on a brave face, like, yes, everything is fine. And everything was not fine. I was really, really angry, especially on such a wonderful holiday like December 25th, Christmas Day. So what did I do in my anger? I said in part one of a fish story, cold front, I observed what was going on. What I did is I started to observe. I noticed which ones were doing well. The black skirt tetras, the giant Daniels, the rasboras, where are they? The brilliant rasboras, the zebras, more brilliant rasboras, and that is something. The surfei tetras, they were also doing well. As soon as I found the surfei tetras are also doing well. And I really point that out because you'll see in part two, hopefully part two will continue, will have the happy ending that I think I will have. I just kind of said, you know what? All those other fish, and I had some beautiful other tetras, they died. I must have lost half of this fish tank. But you'll notice that it's well stocked now, and you can see that there's some really small ones in here, and I'll explain that during part two. And you'll notice if you look back on my archives, this fish tank looks different. But I'm not going to talk about that now. I'm just talking about part one. In this, you need to observe what went wrong and what went right. And so I observed what fish made it through the cold front. I made sure I checked where my heater was and what kind of heater it was, and I observed the filters, and I observed where my bubbles were, my oxygen levels were, and that's all I did during this particular cold front. In my anger, I observed what went right. This is one of the few exceptions. This poor guy is blind. I don't know what happened to his eyes, but he's the rare exception. Everyone else in here that you see, they either were, I'm not going to talk about it, but they definitely were the strong ones in that particular cold front. One of the things I like about science, and I'm not much of a science guy, I'm not much of a math guy, I'm more of a reading, literature kind of guy, tell me a story type of guy, like what I'm doing right now. But one thing I do like about science is that it is what it is. You know, you just kind of follow what's going on, and then it works. So this is the thing that you need to kind of see in the scientific method, is what I was trying to say while I was trying to find with my words. In the scientific method, the first thing before you resolve anything, you have a hypothesis with educated guess type of thing, is you need to kind of observe what is the problem. And the problem was the cold front. The problem was perhaps my equipment. The problem was perhaps the type of fish I had. And that is what I did in my anger. Instead of saying, you know what, scrap everything, let's just go with cold water fish. Because I need to remember, even though it was cold, I need to work with Mother Nature. Mother Nature works here as subtropical. Like I said, a good 9 months out of the year, it is warm to hot, like in the 80s and 90s. I would say a good 9 months out of the year. We're talking Fahrenheit. So what can, instead of going against the grain, I need to work with Mother Nature and kind of see what is the issue, what fish work, what equipment works, and kind of go with that. And that's the point here. A cold front, a fish story, part 1. Observation. In your anger, in your confusion, in your epic failures, find out what went wrong, what went right, and see what you can do about it. This is Luigi Fresh.